Hello everyone, and welcome. I'm excited to have you here today. Today's presentation is titled Tafsir by Transmission, and we'll be exploring an important aspect of our field. We'll cover what tafsir by transmission means, its significance, and how it impacts our understanding. So, let's get started and dive into this interesting topic together. Today, I want to talk about some key tafsir works and their characteristics. First, we have Tafsir Bur Riwaya by Abdul Haq ibn Adiyya al-Andalusi. He was a Maliki scholar and judge who served in both Spain and Morocco. His tafsir is notable because it offers a summary of accurate narrations from earlier tafsirs, emphasizing reliable sources. This makes it a valuable reference for those seeking authentic narrations. Next, we look at Tafsir Abul Layth as-Samarkandi, also known as Bar al-Ulum. Abul Layth was a Hanafi fiqh scholar who died around 983 CE. His tafsir is heavily based on hadiths and narrations from the Sahaba, the Tabi'un, and subsequent scholars. However, it's important to note that it includes some weak narrations, and the chains of narration for statements from the Sahaba and Tabi'un are not always mentioned or analyzed. This highlights the need for caution when referencing this tafsir. Finally, we have Tafsir Abi Ishaq, called Al-Kashf wa al-Bayan, and Tafsir al-Quran, by Ahmad ibn Ibrahim al-Thalabi. His work mentions the chains of narration from the Sahaba, but often in a condensed manner. He also includes many Israeliyat or biblical stories without critical analysis. Additionally, some weak and even fabricated hadiths are present, partly due to his limited background in hadith sciences. So, when studying tafsir, it's crucial to understand the sources and their strengths or weaknesses. This helps us appreciate the depth and limitations of each tafsir, guiding us to rely on the most authentic and well-founded interpretations. Let's take a closer look at some of the most important tafsirs in Islamic history. First, we have Tafsir Ibn Jarir at-Tabari, also known as Jami al-Bayan fi Tafsir al-Quran. Muhammad ibn Jarir at-Tabari, who lived from 839 to 923 CE, was not only a renowned scholar in law, hadith, and history, but he also reached the level of ijtihad, which means he was able to interpret the Quran independently, outside of any specific school of thought. His tafsir is particularly significant because it is the oldest tafsir that has survived intact to this day. It includes detailed narrations, many of which he analyzes carefully. He also discusses different recitations of the Quran and their meanings, and he incorporates biblical stories and discusses various theological positions, including those of unorthodox groups like the Mu'tazilis, which he refutes. This tafsir has served as a foundation for all later tafsirs, influencing the way Quranic interpretation has developed over centuries. Next, we look at Tafsir al-Baghawi, known as Ma'alim at-Tanzil. Al-Husayn ibn Muhammad al-Baghawi, who passed away in 1117 CE, was a prominent jurist within the Shafi'i school and a leading hadith scholar of his time. His tafsir is essentially a condensed version of Tafsir al-Thalabi. What makes it stand out is that he carefully removes weak or fabricated narrations, ensuring the authenticity of the content. He also mentions all the chains of narration, which adds to its reliability. Additionally, al-Baghawi excludes heretical ideas and scientific details that aren't directly related to understanding the Quran. His focus is on clarity. He briefly touches on different recitations and explains grammatical structures only when necessary. While he mentions some stories from the Israelites without deep analysis, and he notes conflicting scholarly opinions without always evaluating them. Overall, his tafsir is considered one of the most trustworthy based on narration. Both of these tafsirs exemplify the importance of transmission in our understanding of the Quran. They highlight the role of authentic narrations, careful analysis, and scholarly rigor. These works serve as crucial references for anyone studying tafsir deeply and demonstrate how transmission and narration are foundational to Islamic exegesis. Let's take a closer look at the sources of tafsir by transmission. First, we have Tafsir Ibn Kathir, a widely respected and highly authentic tafsir. Abul Fida, Ibn Kathir, who lived from 1300 to 1373 CE, was a prominent scholar in both fiqh and hadith. He was a student of Ibn Taymiyyah and also a noted historian. His historical work, Al-Bidayah wa an-Nihaya, is considered one of the most authentic Islamic history books. When it comes to his tafsir, Tafsir Ibn Kathir is regarded as second only to Tafsir at-Tabari in popularity among scholars. It features an extensive preface that explains the methodology of tafsir itself. One of its key strengths is the emphasis on interpreting the Quran with the Quran, ensuring consistency and depth. Ibn Kathir critically examines all narrations, carefully evaluating conflicting statements from the Sahaba and the Tabi'un. He also warns against the dangers of Israeliyat, or false stories, and other unreliable information often found in tafsirs. An abridged version was published in the 1980s, removing inauthentic narrations, making it more accessible while maintaining its authenticity. Next, we look at Tafsir ath-Thalabi. Abdurrahman ibn Makhlouf ath-Thalabi, who passed away in 1472 CE, was a North African scholar known for his piety and deep knowledge. His tafsir was basically an abridgment of Ibn Adiyah's tafsir, but he enriched it by adding insights from other classical tafsirs, especially at Tabari. Most of his work involves compiling and condensing previous sources, with a focus on evaluating hadiths and Israeliyat. He also discusses variant recitations and grammatical issues, but overall, his tafsir is a synthesis, a compilation of earlier works with minimal personal additions. This approach makes his tafsir a valuable resource for understanding the broader context and scholarship behind tafsir. Connecting this to our overall theme, understanding these sources and their transmission helps us appreciate the depth and reliability of the tafsir we study. It highlights how scholars have built upon each other's work, ensuring the preservation and accuracy of Quranic interpretation across generations. Let's delve into the works of two prominent scholars in tafsir and hadith sciences. First, we have Jalaluddin as-Suyuti, who authored Ad-Dur al-Manthur fi at-Tafsir by al-Mathur. He was a renowned Shafi'i fiqh scholar and the leading hadith scholar of his time. Initially, he wrote a comprehensive 4-volume tafsir called Turjuman al-Quran, which included over 10,000 hadiths along with their chains of narration. However, when he noticed his students were less interested in studying the chains, he simplified the tafsir by removing these chains, focusing instead on the sources of the hadiths. This streamlined version was renamed Ad-Dur al-Manthur. It's important to understand that despite his extensive knowledge of hadith sciences, his main concern seemed to be gathering as many hadiths as possible, without always distinguishing between authentic and weak narrations. Next, we look at Muhammad ibn Ali ash-Shawkani, who is well known for his tafsir, Fatih al-Qadir. He was based in Sana'a, Yemen, and initially studied the Zaydi madhab. Over time, he became well-versed in hadith sciences and developed his own independent approach. In his tafsir, ash-Shawkani combines both methods, interpretation by opinion and narration. He condensed the chains of hadith and clearly mentions the sources where each hadith can be found. Most opinions are directly attributed to their sources, making his tafsir quite transparent. He also discusses grammatical, legal, and philosophical issues, often referencing the positions of other great commentators. This tafsir spans 5 volumes and is highly respected among Orthodox scholars, with recent additions including detailed footnotes that thoroughly document the hadiths he cites. This approach to tafsir, by transmission, emphasizes the importance of authentic sources and chains, helping us appreciate the depth and reliability of these classical works. Let's take a closer look at the slide. This tafsir, titled Tafsir ibn Abbas, Tanwir al-Mikbaz min Tafsir ibn Abbas, was compiled by the scholar Muhammad ibn Yaqub al-Fairuzabadi, who passed away in 1414 CE or 817 AH. He was a renowned Shafi'i scholar, and many of you might be familiar with his famous Arabic dictionary, Al-Qamus al-Muhit. Most of this tafsir is based on explanatory statements attributed to the great Sahabi and Mufassir, Ibn Abbas. What's important here is that the author mentions the chains of narrators. These are the isnad, or the chain of transmission, for each section of tafsir. Because of this tafsir is classified as being among the tafsir's buriwaya, meaning it relies on transmission narrations. Now, the critical point to understand is that these chains of narration vary in their authenticity. Some are highly reliable, while others are questionable. For example, chains from Muawiyah ibn Salih and Qays ibn Muslim al-Kufi are considered sahih, which means they are highly authentic. Chains from Ibn Ishaq, the historian, are considered hasan or authentic, but with a bit more caution. However, some chains come from narrators like Ismail ibn Abdur Rahman as-Sudi al-Kabir and Abdul Malik ibn Jurayj, which are considered doubtful. And there are chains from individuals like Ad-Dahak ibn Mazohim al-Hilali, Adiya al-Afi, Muqatil ibn Sulaiman al-Azdi, and Muhammad ibn Az-Zaib al-Kalabi, who was accused of fabricating hadiths that are classified as daif or unacceptable. A very important point here is that much of this tafsir, especially the parts attributed to Ibn Abbas, is based on chains that contain Muhammad ibn Az-Zaib al-Kalabi, whose narrations are deemed unreliable. Therefore, despite its popularity among many people, scholars of hadith and tafsir reject this tafsir for the most part due to these chains' weaknesses. In summary, this slide emphasizes the significance of isnad in tafsir and how the reliability of these chains impacts the overall credibility of the tafsir. It reminds us to always be cautious and to rely on authentic sources when studying the Quran and tafsir.